Growing up, I was taught how to study hard, get good grades, build a stable career, and make my parents proud. But nobody really taught me confidence, social skills, flirting, masculinity, or even how to express myself as a man. And then suddenly, you hit your late 20s and everyone in your family starts asking, "So, when are you getting married?" Or, "Shadi kab kar raha hai?" You're suddenly bombarded with all of these expectations that if you don't have a stable career or a wife by a certain age, you're behind in life. Meanwhile, internally, you're thinking stuff like, "Bro, I don't even know how to talk to a girl." And honestly, I think a lot more South Asian men go through this than people realize. Not because we're incapable or unattractive, but because a lot of us were raised to prioritize education and stability first. And of course, there's a bunch of strengths that come from that, but then there are also certain social skills and emotional skills that a lot of us end up developing later in life. And this past year has been one of my biggest self-development years of my life. So in this video, I wanted to talk about why I personally think a lot of South Asian men become late bloomers, what I personally struggled with as a South Asian man, and why I think things can get better. So for context, I'm an Indian dentist, and like a lot of kids who come from immigrant families, I grew up in an environment where education was everything. And honestly, I understand why. A lot of our parents sacrificed a lot to come to America. They wanted stability, security, respect, and a better life for their kids. So naturally, the message became focus on school, don't get distracted, build a stable life first. And because of that, a lot of us became very disciplined academically. But at the same time, socially, a lot of us were underdeveloped. While some people were socializing, dating, partying, developing confidence and learning relationships, a lot of us were in libraries, studying, and trying to survive difficult career paths. And there are moments where I personally remember in high school and college where my friends would tell me to go party with them, but I said nah and just hit the books or did my own thing. And naturally, I felt myself becoming more detached from my friends, becoming more introverted, and over time, I became more insecure and less confident socially. And then eventually, you wake up later in life with degrees, money, career stability, but socially, you still feel behind while you see all your friends having significant others and living their lives. And that feeling can honestly mess with your confidence a lot, because on paper, your life looks successful, but internally, you may feel awkward, inexperienced, unsure of yourself, and uncomfortable around women. And honestly, I think many South Asian men silently carry shame about this because nobody really talks about it openly. And looking back now, I don't think the issue was that we didn't want to be social. A lot of us just lacked experience. For me personally, I was definitely a late bloomer. I spent years focused almost entirely on school, dentistry, residency, career goals. And while I'm grateful for everything I've achieved professionally, I realized there were other areas of my life that I completely neglected. Fitness, confidence, social skills, dating. And there came a point where I realized that I'd built my career, but I hadn't fully built myself. And that realization hit hard. I remember going on dates feeling awkward, nervous, and inexperienced socially. Because growing up, I subconsciously thought that if I just become successful, confidence and dating will happen naturally. But life doesn't really work like that. You can be highly educated and still struggle socially. You can look successful externally, while internally, you still feel inexperienced. You can have a great career and still feel insecure. And I think that a lot of men silently relate to this. So over the past year, I intentionally started working on myself a lot more. I started going to the gym more, improving my appearance, dressing with intention, putting myself in more uncomfortable situations, enhancing my digital presence, and going on more dates. And honestly, this past year completely changed my life. Not because I suddenly became some confident, perfect guy, but I started to become more comfortable with who I am as a person. I realized that confidence, social skills, dating, communication, all these things are skills, which means that you have to practice them to get better. And once I realized that, I felt like so much pressure came off of my shoulders, because for the first time, I stopped viewing myself as behind or broken. I just realized that these are skills that I never really developed before. And now I'm finally in the process of building them. I think one of the hardest parts about being a late bloomer is the shame, especially as a man. because society kind of expects men to naturally know how to date, how to flirt, how to lead socially, and how to be confident. And if you don't know those things later in life, it can feel a little embarrassing. You start comparing yourself and you feel behind, and sometimes that lack of experience shows up as awkwardness, nervousness, or overthinking in social situations. And I feel like this is especially common among South Asian men, because for many of us, the issue isn't lack of intelligence or lack of potential, it's the lack of reps. A lot of us simply did not spend our younger years developing those parts of ourselves. And honestly, there's nothing wrong with that. It doesn't make us behind in life. The important thing is to just realize which skills you're weak in and to improve those with intention. One thing I'm realizing now is that becoming more confident isn't really about becoming somebody else. It's about becoming more comfortable with yourself. For me, confidence started growing when I stopped pedestalizing people, when I put myself out there more, improved my fitness, and became more socially expressive. And even hobbies like dance helped me, because dance forced me to express myself, stop overthinking, become more comfortable socially, and to stop caring about judgment. And I think many South Asian men were never really encouraged to express themselves while growing up. A lot of us were taught to be safe, responsible, and reserved, but confidence often requires expressiveness, playfulness, presence, and social freedom. But after working on these skills and improving them intentionally, I'm starting to feel so much more comfortable with myself. And that's what confidence really is. So being a late bloomer is not something to be ashamed of. A lot of us were simply optimized for different things depending on how we were raised. For most of us South Asians belonging to immigrant families, our parents raised us the same way that they were raised in India. But growing up in America, I eventually learned that there were certain social skills, dating dynamics, and forms of self-expression that I've never really learned. And I think that's a big reason why I became a late bloomer in several areas of my life. But the good news is, confidence, social skills, dating experience, all that shit could still be developed. And if you're someone who feels behind socially or romantically later in life, I genuinely want you to know that you're not alone. A lot of us are figuring this out in real time, and honestly, that's kind of what this whole journey has been like for me. I've made mistakes, I'm not perfect, and I'm still learning. So if any of this resonated with you, let me know in the comments. I'd actually be really curious to hear if other people experience this too. And yeah, appreciate you guys watching. See you in the next one. Peace.